Let's go over it, guys. The brand new uniques and legendaries coming out in Season 2 of Diablo 4. So, first off, this just came out. These don't explain everything, so I do have some screenshots that are actually going to show off all of the stats on the item, because even though some of the unique items might have a really cool power, if the rest of the stats kind of suck on the item can still actually be kind of bad, right? So anyways, let's go over all of the ones that we know of. So starting right off, this is going to be for the druid. This is called the Dolmen Stone. It looks like it's going to have some all res, some life, some resource generation, nature, magic, skill cooldown reduction, and +2 ranks of all wrath skills. And casting boulder while hurricane is active will cause your boulders to rotate around you. And this can actually hit the enemy multiple times. If you have played Twisting Blades, think of it kind of like that, but with the boulder. This is actually a massive, and I mean massive, DPS bonus. You could maybe just fit this in and you will actually deal an insane amount of more damage with your druid, because hurricane, well, it's kind of used just to proc vulnerability, also just hitting the enemy more times to proc other things. This is actually a great item. This is one of the first uniques that I will say is actually pretty solid. The next one up over here is actually for the rogue. It's called the Scoundrel's Leathers, and what it does is it gives you plus trap skill damage, some extra bonus damage to enemies affected by trap skills. In addition to that, it's damage reduction from enemies affected by trap skills. We also get dodge chance, which is actually pretty good. And then while you have unlimited energy from Inner Sight, your core skills have a 64% chance to spawn Caltrops, Poison Trap, or Death Trap, which could actually be pretty good. There could be some really good play with this. If you activate your ultimate, there are other bonuses that can activate, like you can get extra crit if you have casted, let's say, your Death Trap. There are some extra bonuses, and if that works with that, this could be actually pretty good, or if it gives you the bonus of having the extra boost of energy when these actually spawn in, it could be kind of nice, but you'd have unlimited energy anyways. But there could be some other cool synergy when you activate something, a certain trap, or if enemies affected by this. I think this one's actually pretty decent for the power. However, remember, you're losing out on your chest piece, which could add a lot of damage reduction. I think this is kind of a big thing that needs to be taken into consideration when we are looking at uniques, because we would be losing out on, let's say, some damage to like clothes and just flat out armor. Next up over here, though, we have Flicker Step. So these are a unique pair of boots. These ones are for pretty much the sorcerers here. So they're called Flicker Step, and it has all stats, movement speed, ultimate skill damage, damage reduction from close enemies, and it says that each enemy you evade through reduces your active ultimate cooldown by up to 2 to 4 seconds, up to 10 seconds. So this one actually has a lot of potential for more classes. They said it was for sorcerer. However, I want to say more classes could, in theory, make use out of it, unless it's like only equipable by a sorceress. This could be actually a really awesome thing for lots of different classes, considering we can actually get a lot of cooldown reduction with the new Season of Blood powers. There's like 20%, and there's like reduce a active cooldown by like 2 seconds. So keep your eyes out on this one. So in terms of these three that we have pictures of, I would say all of them are relatively decent. They actually have some sort of like use out of them. But the rest of these are all just text-based, so we don't know what the other special powers are on the roles of the item. So starting right off, these ones are going to be the unique items, and then we'll jump into the brand new legendaries for the aspects. So in terms of the unique items, we have Tacets of the Dawning Sky. So these are going to be generic. This is for all classes. So it says when you take damage from a non-physical damage type, you gain 6 to 10% maximum resistance of that type for 6 seconds, and it can only apply 1 damage type at a time. This one's actually pretty strong, getting up to 10 maximum resistance. So resistances are being reworked in the newer season, and to get 10% maximum resistance, which will give you more than the allocated slot of 70. So in Diablo 4, the maximum resistance that you can now get is actually going to be 70%. Now you can increase this up to 85 via getting increased maximum resistance. This one is actually very, very good. Will it beat Temerity even with the buff? I don't really know. It depends, I guess, on how far you can push those resistances, because if you're at 85, honestly, this is very, very strong. It could be really great for some of the bosses in the game. But again, if we're missing out on that big chunk of life, all the damage reduction, then it could be just something to forget about. But depends on the rules again. Next up, we have the Tusk Helm of the Jorits. the Mighty. So this is a brand new Barbarian unique, and it says when you gain Berserking while already Berserk, you have a 40 to 60% chance to become more in range, getting 15 multiplicative damage, increased damage, 2 fury per second, and 10% cooldown reduction. So I would say this is actually a pretty decent helm, as long as, again, has a cooldown reduction that can roll on it, and then getting an additional 10% and getting the extra fury per second. I could say this could potentially be the best in the slot for some builds. Next up, we have the Dolmen Stone. We already went over that one. That's the one where the boulders get to be active during a hurricane. It's really cool. And then on top of that, the Scoundrel's Leathers. We just went over that one as well, which is the Rogue one. And then we have the Blood Moon Breeches. This is a pair of Necromancer unique pants. It says that your minions have a 3 to 7% chance to curse enemies. Enemies affected by at least one of your curses take 70x multiplicative damage, increased overpower damage from you. So any of like the Blood Nova builds, this could be something to consider. Or if they happen to fix overpower in the game for the classes that normally couldn't get overpower, Necromancer can inherently already get some of it. But if we can start rolling these on rings, it's just another form of crit, if you guys don't know, because like Rogue, you can't really get overpower in general, but you can still get items that have bonus to overpower damage. So they said that we're going to address it in the most recent campfire. I didn't hear anything like we're just going to add overpower chance to roll on rings or anything like that, but nonetheless, that is another change that I figured I would go ahead and mention, because crit and vulnerable are heavily nerfed in the new season. Next up, Blue Rose. So it's a sorcerer unique ring. It says lucky hit, damaging an enemy has up to a 30% chance to forming an exploding ice spike, dealing some set amount of cold damage. Triple this chance if the enemy is frozen. So I mean, on a lucky hit, if you have a 90% chance, right, if it says triple the chance, so you have a 90% chance on just getting an ice spike. And they said that they wanted to buff all of the bonus, just like if this happens, you know, X amount of damage. They wanted to buff all of it. So if this is actually like a pretty decent amount of damage, just being able to get additional like cold damage, because I'm guessing it will also apply chill, and if you can do that, then you can maybe start building up the stagger on the bosses even faster. You know, Blizzard can do it quite fast already, but yeah, this is going to be definitely something to consider. Next up, as far as the legendary aspect, so the aspect can be found in the boots and amulets. So it's a newer one. So these are now the legendaries. Those ones were all the uniques. Now we're moving on to brand new legendaries. Well, it's legendary aspects. Anyways, aspect of slaughter. These are generic mobility boots that grant us 20% bonus movement speed, but we lose the bonus for 2.5 to 5 seconds after taking damage. My question with this is, will this be working with barrier? If you guys didn't know, in Diablo 3, barrier doesn't count as you taking damage in the game with, let's say, Squirt's Necklace or any of the barriers applied by Sorceress. And if we're able to actually still have barriers, this may be best on slot for a lot of different builds because, well, you just get flat 20% movement speed. And if you guys didn't see my previous video, highly recommend you guys check it out. It goes over all the best vampiric powers. One of the best vampiric powers in the entire game. It's crazy that it's a minor power, but you can get an insane amount. You can get like 80% extra attack speed, which is crazy. That's almost the cap. The cap is 100% bonus. So this could actually help out with that because you get more attack speed based off of your movement speed, and just another 20% is definitely not bad at all, especially since it's already on the boots. But if you move to the amulets, getting 1.5 times power, hey, it's not bad at all. If you happen to have an open slot, most builds you'll throw something else in the amulet, but like for the boots, because boots don't really have good aspects, this could be actually good. Depends on the build you're playing, but for the most part, yeah. Anyways, next up, these aspects are on amulets, gloves, rings, and weapons. So these are other legendaries. So the aspect of elements is a generic offensive aspect where you get to gain 20 to 30% additive damage, increased damage to a set of damage types for 7 seconds. It alternates between 2 sets. So it's fire, lightning, and physical, cold, poison, and shadow. So maybe for the sorceress, you can kind of almost have it up 100% of the time. You can keep on using your hydras and then use, let's say, like your any cold variant, ice shards, and then you could kind of keep this one up for the most part. But I want to say it's kind of like a throwback to Convention of Elements in Diablo 3, but it cycles through just 2 sections of them versus going through all of them, which I think is a nicer change because, well, if you cycle through all the elements, then you'd have to have this to be way stronger in order for people to actually want to use it, but because it is additive damage, it's kind of weak. Next up, though, we have the Wantan Rupture aspect for Barbarian. So it says our Rupture does not remove the bleed damage from enemies. However, there's a huge downside. If it didn't have this, this would actually be game breaking, and I'd say everyone play Barbarian, it'd be S tier. But there's a drawback. 30 to 40 seconds, but it still is a pretty good thing to have because you can do a massive amount of damage with that. So this one could be something that a lot of people may be looking forward to. Next up though, we have the Raw Might aspect, which is a druid offensive aspect. It says after you hit 15 enemies with your werebear skills, your next werebear skill will deal 30 to 50% multiplicative damage, more damage, and stun enemies for 2 seconds. I think that one could be okay. I mean, it does require you to hit 15 enemies with werebear, but if you happen to have an empty slot, I mean, that's a great amount of damage. Especially if you sit there, use like intercom, and like you're doing all these different steps to just make sure you get the overpower on that next hit, right? Because druid can do that. You may be able to potentially one-shot. I don't know if someone's going to try it and be able to one-shot some of the new Uber bosses, but I'm sure someone's going to figure out some sort of crazy, like cheesy build. But like again, the reason why this is massive is because crit and vulnerable are getting heavily nerfed, and to have another source of, you know, a multiplicative damage, that's pretty strong. But yeah, anyways, again, because especially since you could overpower. Next up, the aspect of Artful Initiative, which is a rogue offensive aspect. It says when you spend 100 energy, you release a cluster of exploding stun grenades. And this is actually pretty dang good. The reason why is you could build up that stagger bar, because in the previous season, or season 1, we could actually get these little stun grenades to pop up on lucky hit, and it's actually pretty helpful for stagger bar on the bosses. So I could see this actually being pretty good if you have an open slot. But you have a bunch of stun grenades come out, the amount of damage that deals is probably going to be like worthless, honestly. But it does also stun enemies for 0.5 seconds, and our grenade skills deal 15% more damage. So this could actually help out with the little grenades dealing damage. But at the end of the day, it's probably just going to be used for stagger, but who knows. The reason why all these small little numbers don't really matter for the most part is because it doesn't count as, let's say, a core skill, because it's just like something else, right? But it could be something to consider. There is something where like if you activate like if your enemies are affected by some sort of like stun grenades or trap skills, you can get like extra cooldown on your trap skills, which this could be actually pretty good for just, again, reprocking some other things. Next up though, we have the aspect of the Long Shadow, which is a necromancer one. It says like you hit your shadow damage over time effects have a 10 to 30% chance to generate 3 essence. Damage from your Shadow Blight key passive will always generate 2 essence. Then the Battlecaster's aspect, which is a sorcerer offensive aspect. It says lucky hit. When your conjuration skills hit, you have a 30 to 40% chance to gain +1 rank to your conjuration skills for 12 seconds, and this can stack up to 3 times. So I think this one could be kind of cool. I believe you can do like Hydra, Ice Blades, and just have a bunch of these, and then you could just have plus all the ranks. Now, this is only up to 3 times, so it's +3. That's usually about 15% more damage. So if you have an open slot, 15% more damage is still not bad at all, considering it's like the flat skill of it. But let me know, guys, what you think of the brand new uniques as well as the legendary aspects. Are you guys really excited about these, or are you just guys going to play on non-seasonal? For me, honestly, some of these are actually pretty interesting, but I'm going to probably start off on playing non-season, just so I can do the Uber bosses, so I can get some of those Uber uniques, because I really want to get my hands on a Shaco. It's just going to be awesome to get that. But I think some of these new uniques, they're looking to be a lot better. But again, when you look at some of these ones like the armor, where you're losing out on so much flat damage reduction, and you're losing out on the aspect, it's just too much to give up. I think what they really should do is just have these able to apply an aspect to, so we can at least get some damage reduction at the end of the day, because they are heavily nerfing the damage mitigation, when now we have resistances, which is a good thing. However, armor is going to be no longer granting all resistance, which is a very, very massive nerf to a lot of different builds. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up. Let me know your thoughts down below. If you guys enjoyed it, drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys in the next video.